Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
T-minus 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all around the world. Welcome to Starbase Weekly, episode 164. I'm Stephanie B, and I'll be your host for today. And today we have Alex with us. It's becoming a bit of a local. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Should be another fun show, and hopefully my internet behaves.
Meant to say regularly. And we've got Ryan Hansen with us as well. Awesome. G'day, Ryan.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's good to be back. I know we got a lot of cool photos to share with you guys. We had some good weather, so a lot of cool viewing opportunities.
Okay, let's go and start over at Massey's. So I'll just start with the photo of the year. If not, this is probably one of the best photos I've seen of RGV probably ever. So it's showing a bit of the repair work going on down in the bottom of the trench. I think this is some of the clearest shots we've had down in the trench, to be honest, even though there is a stand sitting on top. So it looks like it's probably an impact site here for an engine, or the thrust puck. There's quite a bit of debris, I would imagine, was shot down into the flame trench, something that the flame bucket was never quite designed to withstand. But looking at it, it looks like it's survived fairly well, mostly of what we can see, but I mean, we can only see a small amount.
That's a far edge just before it ramps up on the side. So there's a fair amount that where the pipes go silver is the demarcation point where it starts angling upwards along the walls.
Yep. So this shot also gives us a pretty good view of the rail system, and there's a pipe in here which is kind of a bit of throws the image out a little bit, but recently they added this pipe to add a bit more water, and that's the rail up there. And I don't know, we've worked out exactly what these white bits and those square bits did we, Alex?
The white bits is new heat shielding. Some of the older shots, the mounting underneath each of those square points goes down and is bolted to the or welded to the side of the trench.
Thank you. Didn't mean to cut you off then.
Oh, you didn't.
And we get a good shot also of the moving mechanism for the actual platform here. We've got a drive here, which will be driving a pinion, and there's a rack up under there. So basically like your rack and pinion steering on your modern cars. And there's a locking pin here on this hydraulic ram. Now, I didn't quite get these photos in order this week. I'll drop around the other side. I think we can actually see the rack on one of these photos. That doesn't matter, it's only a minor detail. On some of these photos, we can actually see the rack underneath here. Okay, we'll move over to the actual methane farm, and we can see they're building a new bunker. Over here, some kind of new building anyway. Seems to have, would these be beams or would they be the posts? I wonder, the columns here?
Those are the columns, and there's right on the lower section next to them, there's this rectangle rebar. No, a little bit further along by the edge. Right at the, yeah, that should be, it looks like one of the beams. Also, it's the way at the end of the rebar. It's looking quite robust.
Oh, actually, we're back in the trench. Look at that. A bit of debris down the bottom. And a bit of, this was funny, that they imprinted the platform here underneath, which could possibly just be paint come through, like you were saying, Alex.
Yeah, I'm wondering if some of those are deluge pipes they chopped up in that pile. It's not important.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Actually, while we're over there, you'll have to excuse me jumping around a little bit this morning. I'm a little bit tired today. So there's some more newer pipes, and down here we can see some of the, perhaps maybe these are some of these sections here they'll cut out. Maybe that's what they were. I'm not sure whether they're couponing this to check for erosion. Some people are suggesting maybe they're the new pipes, but I'm pretty sure these are the old pipes. They're kind of tarnished.
I think that this might be just replacement pieces. They're cutting out sections and then taking down in the trench and patching them.
Ah.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you look at that opening shot where the person's welding, there's pipes that sort of look like this.
Oh, like there.
Yeah, and especially where it's torch or their torches, you can see it's cut.
Yeah,
It would be far easier to, cut patches and patch them with it, in place than to take out, individual sections of the pipe.
Because I guess it would only be dinted on the top half, really, wouldn't it?
Correct.
Cool. That looks like a bit of damage there. Okay, cool. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a whole heap of sense. Some awesome photos this week from all different angles. They flew a bit closer to the border this week and got there's some good angles we haven't seen before around the flame trench and around from the other side as well. Okay,
so I had some ideas on the concrete, bunker type thing that they're building there. I believe that this is going to protect the above ground valve sleds that they have before they go up onto the actual platform for like the ship quick disconnect. So I think those pipes are probably going to come out of the trench. They're going to go into that flat area there. They're probably going to have some valve assemblies, maybe some other GSE equipment in here, and then they'll probably stay above ground, but they'll come out here on the right side and then start heading over to the stand, and they'll have the area well protected. So, and then presumably there's gonna be a roof on here since they do have some columns. So, if we were to have another, Ship 36 type failure, that they're protected from above from falling debris, hopefully.
Yeah, like I was saying, the size of the beams, it looks like, for supporting that roof are pretty substantial.
And the plumbing would have to come over this wall, I would imagine, to get through, unless they come around the side here. And Alex, you're saying this may be left open. There may not be a wall through here or there.
Correct.
They
bit
probably
like
only
the-
want a wall on the one side there. That way there's room for air to kind of go through there and carry away any vapor.
Yep, so I
Yeah.
imagine they may even bring the piping around, the main cryers around this side, or maybe the methane sort of that side. And then maybe the high pressure stuff in here, and then come out over here, perhaps.
Or the opposite, the main propellant through the center. But yeah.
At minimum, I think they want to put anything that is breakable beyond pipes inside of the concrete bunker, and then just from there to the stand to just have pipes for the most part.
Yeah. And the wall for this bunker looks thicker than that new blast wall at Pad B.
Yep. Okay, moving along. They've got all the formwork off the other bunker. I'm sure there's a million things in there we've missed this week. See the continuing with electrical. In here they can see the conduits we saw last week being run. There's stub outs there, and I think in here somewhere, maybe there was some more. So we saw they were new runs running back to this bunker. They did repair old conduit runs from this area, and over this area they're doing a bit more with old conduit runs in here still. I'd imagine it's going to be, as an electrician I can tell you from experience, it's a bit of a nightmare when you have to do renovations and you have old electrical work and new electrical work to be integrated. It can be it's not hard, it's just a little bit annoying.
There's that reverse angle for all the conduits going into that bunker is crazy spaghetti.
On the other side there.
Yeah.
I believe we can see that here. Oh, back there.
Yeah.
We got a shot right around there, have we?
I thought we did.
I'm not sure about that. But this is a good angle anyway to show the amount of conduit going in the bottom of that building. And there's also room for conduit obviously on that side and the front side as well. Let me just see. I don't think we can quite see all the way around. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I'm sorry I didn't get my photos organised this week quite as well as I should. Okay, so I imagine in this bunker here, with the ground level will be up level with the bottom of this door is the same level like where this dude's standing. So once they've filled this in with dirt, we may see the main transformers sit in this area. I imagine they would protect them rather than sitting them out here again like they did last time. Here's some more of the conduits coming out. Is that conduits or is that formwork? Oh, that's conduits.
I think they have that corrugated steel that they box in the conduit before they pour the protective concrete around it.
Yep. So there's a couple of runs run through to this trench, and I'm not sure whether whether this is a run straight through. Sorry, this trench through here. I'm not sure whether they run straight through here. I'm pretty sure they would come here and then see Some go this way and some go that way. We've
Yeah,
got oh, sorry.
The size where they're recompacting by the excavator, it looks like they fanned out.
In here?
On the right, yeah, on the right side of the excavator. Right next to its track. Yeah, that it looks like since they're compacting that huge area, they probably had large sweeps going both directions, like you were speculating.
Yep. So they've delivered half a dozen vaporizers, and much to our surprise, they put them on the danger side of the tank for protection, but we're fairly sure there's going to be a wall here to protect these vaporizers. So we can see the mounts for those vaporizers here, the 6 of them, and a foundation for this horizontal tank over here. Now I'm trying to remember to slow down on the pushing the screen around. And another pad here for not sure what yet.
Probably the vertical nitrogen tanks they also have.
So they'll need methane gas generation here, and they'll need nitrogen gas generation here, will they?
Yeah, they use the nitrogen for the reclamation system for the methane. And also for the heat exchangers.
Yep. And now the methane run, are we still thinking it's going to run around the back there? It kind of looks like it's still going to happen around that way, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh, I can almost get that shot you're looking for. So there's the 2 hippos here. Looks like maybe this is part of the nitrogen system. I found somewhere else the actual stack for this is somewhere nearby.
I think it's just to the right, right there through the crane lattice.
There it is there, yep, right there. So there's the stack for the hippos. So remember at the launch site, we can pretty well, everything we saw at the launch site, but in miniature. I mean, there's only 2 instead of, it's a lot smaller, obviously. We should see here, so there's like the redundancy systems and the stacks, and to recover the nitrogen gas here at one point. I guess there'll be valves on this one as well, like they have it on the exhaust to control the pressure in these, like they did at the launch site as well.
Yeah, there's both halves of the ground manifold for the exhaust hiding under that crane.
Okay, I'll go over there in a sec. So the pump frames are in. Still no the sump pumps, the pump sumps. They're not here yet, obviously. And the lower rack for the input manifolds and the output manifolds and control gear to come up here. Towards the back of the site, we can see lots of GSC. I had a thought last night that maybe some of this is some of the plumbing they pulled out over from between the LOX farm and the methane farm, but maybe it's all new.
I believe it's all new.
Well, that kind of looks like what comes out of the old trench and turns the corner towards the methane farm. Previously with its nitrogen line as well, exactly the same. But it could be new runs. Just while in this little area, they're updating this liquid nitrogen system here as well. Not exactly sure what's going. It looks like maybe some newer valves perhaps going in. I doubt it's for anything to do with quantity or even pressure. It's probably just maybe some redundancy. Not sure.
Because that would be about the 3rd time that they've redone that, because when they initially built it, it was one way, and then they made it some changes, and then it was rerouted a little bit differently. So it's possible that this 3rd time might be the charm. They might be doing it a little bit differently to fix maybe some of the previous issues they had.
Thank
hopefully.
you. Yeah. Oh, how about that? Well, this all looks like brand new. Obviously, Cryoline's here, so they've got a GSC section set up over here. Workstation. Now, there's the valve. So that would be where the valves go on
Right.
for the exhaust. Yeah.
Yeah, they have that manifold where they have the two, the intake and the outlet.
Okay. There's more GSC stuff over this side. Okay, moving along. So the methane side is coming along quite quickly. It's obviously going to be a minute or two to get these bunkers up and running, but with the new sled systems, and they have the sled for the gas stuff at the launch site, so that we should see the same sort of sleds going in over there, so that should speed up. We should see this almost go quicker than the first time I set up all this here at Macy's. Just quickly over here, that crane's still there. Sorry, where we just were. That telehandler's still there that got burnt. Seem to be not in a hurry to get rid of that crane as well. Is still here. They have cleaned up some of the parts we saw here last week. They're over here now. We had a debate whether we should show the ITAR bin or not, but there's some engines in that ITAR bin, so I just might leave that at that. I'm pretty sure it's not. I don't think us looking at the engines is a problem. I think it's more to do with where those bins end up going for the recycling, so that they go to a company that has ITAR clearance and don't steal secrets, I guess, would be more to go. But just in case it's not, I'll just limit how much we look at that. Okay, on to the lock side. That's not the best. Just bear with me for a sec. This one might do. Nope. This photo should do. So they haven't done any more with the stands moving forward in the locks area. Whether they pull these stands down and put the new stands in, or whether they straddle the new stands over these stands, is yet to be seen. But I'm hearing either way. Could be or couldn't be. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that one. So maybe this stuff could even stay and still be used for the cryo testing side of things. That was all I was thinking. Okay, onto the hippos here. They've removed the top manifolds. They've added flanges. So I guess we'll see once again the same. We'll see an exhaust stack on the exhaust for the nitrogen gases here off the top of the hippos. And I checked, these hippos look smaller, but I checked with me little measuring scale, and it's an illusion. They're actually the same size, so it still looks like they're different sizes. But I did put a measuring stick over them. Okay, we're still online? Yeah, I'm still online. So I did get some different angles across there as well. We don't often get to see around the back of the LOX tanks. Bear with me here, sorry. Across here, we haven't seen these sort of photos before, where we can see straight across the actual oxygen tank where they hook up the LOX tank plumbing. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I get paranoid about my internet connection too. Okay, we'll move on to the cryo stand now. And this week we've got an exciting development for that as well. Let's find the photo. This one will do. This week we see the clamps installed, looking very much ready for a booster. And these photos are starting to give us some indication that the booster is going to sit on these hemispheres and not the actual bottom plate of the booster. It doesn't look like the bottom plate of the booster. What's your thoughts on that, Ryan?
Yeah, that was always the plan. It was always going to sit on top of the little ball joints on the bottom. Yeah, it was never going to sit on anything flat.
And what about the launch side? Do you think the clamps at the launch side are a bit different and maybe could take some load on the flat?
No, I think the little flanges that we see on the sides of those arms for the launch mount is just basically support ears for shims and being able to get everything centered properly.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the movement of those will help with the centering and not having to do as much fine tuning, for lack of a better term, between launches and stacks.
And I got an idea these may be rods to finally adjust the top of these clamp arms left and right here and backwards and forwards. I may be wrong, but there seemed to be some kind of adjustment into that frame.
Yeah, that would be correct. You're going to have vertical and translational, adjustment on these in order to get them exactly where you want. So I don't know how exactly they'd be doing the vertical here. It's possible that those spheres are on kind of a rod that they can screw up and down. It's possible there's something else going on that we just don't have the resolution to see, but you'd have to have the vertical alignment because you are going to have some small tolerance variation across the entire assembly there, and you'd want to make sure that that's set up accordingly. Because you don't basically want one of the balls to be exposed to significantly more force than the neighbor.
Yeah, either some sort of screw jack, or if it's small hydraulic cylinders, they could use the pressure to have it sort of find its level.
Because it looks like the entire black assembly that has the ball and the clamp is all one piece. So that would be machined to be, even all the way back to the back where the clamp part actually is. That would all be one piece that's machined, and so then that entire piece is leveled and set up so that it is exactly where it needs to be.
Yep, exactly. And I'm wondering whether it needs to be sort of millimeter accurate in height, or whether how much, if they're a bit out, you might get some flex in the bottom plate, whether the booster, if that's an actual problem or not. I guess they have to be fairly close to get the load sort of fairly even. I think they have to be fairly accurate. Another thing is, are these hand operated, or are they going to be hydraulically actuated to actually actuate the clamps themselves? Here we can see the pivot point here, and there's some here that are missing. We can see that must be the other shot. Some of these are missing the clamps still, and we can see that rod at the back quite clearly. Must be the other photo.
You just went past one. Pan down a little bit. Yeah, right. These couple. That one's missing everything, and the one to the right of it looks like it just has the locking pin.
Yeah, I think there is a better photo with more resolution on this hardware. But yeah, I don't think I think that rod that we see isn't like an actuator. That it seems like it's more of a sensor to measure maybe some force that's going on, or because ultimately, this is the cryo thrust puck stand. They're going to be, exerting forces on it, and they probably want to measure to make sure that everything is getting, proper force. Because as you push up on the bottom of the booster, naturally that arm is going to want to rotate back, or the clamp. And so those sensors would measure what, sort of any sort of deflection or anything that's being transmitted through that little latch back. So I think these are likely going to be hand operated. It's really hard to tell based on where those rods are. That's not what's going to actuate them. They can't do that. But it's possibly some sort of a measuring device on the back. So yeah, that one down here at the kind of the bottom of the frame, you can see it, pretty closely, or yeah, just one up there. Yeah, that one's decent. You can see there's a flat surface on the back there that the latch would push against, and I imagine that this piece might need to move out of the way in order for that clamp to fold back. It's not like there's a piston there, I don't think. Even the throw distance, if you figure that if that was a piston and basically halfway is basically what the throw distance would be, I still don't think that's enough to get the end of the latch to open up enough to actually lift the booster out.
It's almost like it rotates, like you're saying, it rotates up, and then the whole clamp can open.
Yeah.
And it sort of drops into a slot.
So I have a feeling that these are probably going to be hand operated, or maybe there's something underneath these that we just can't see that would maybe be pulling down. That's entirely possible too. I don't know if we've got other photos showing anything, but yeah, it's I would lean on these being hand operated.
That looks like a hose. Oh no, it might be to the.
Well, one over here has a sensor, or something. This one here seems to have. I'm not sure if that. On a few of the photos, looks like that cable comes up. Although maybe not. Maybe it's just an illusion. Maybe it just goes over there.
There are a couple that do look like they have wires maybe going to them, but I don't think it's like hydraulics.
Like that one, yeah, more like it looks more like electrical, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's, like Ryan was saying, there's a host of load strain gauges in these.
Because if you have a failure, like if you're pushing up and maybe one of the clamps, senses a minor movement, you'd want to know, because that could indicate like a cracked weld or something.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You can see there are, yeah, that is definitely one single plate there. Mounted actually on top of the actual clamp arm. Remember the clamp arms, they were grey on top. So that's the whole clamp mechanism's all bolted that one black plate.
You definitely don't want deflection.
This week we get to see the booster QDs, so the main cryo lines, and a couple of big pipes down the bottom, and a number up the side. I think there's 4 each side. I think on the render there's 4 each side too, the smaller gas lines. And the same on the methane side over here. There's 4 in there, plus the 3 big locking pins, or the alignment / locking pins. And we can see quite a lot of the detail here with the up and down movement, and we've got some in and out movement on this slide. And over to the side over here, it appears like there's a side-to-side movement as well. So we have the 3 degrees of movement needed to line up the QDs properly.
I have a quick question from Kings. He asked, how much larger are these single QD ports compared to the combined previous design?
I believe they're more compact. Like if you were to take the current booster quick disconnect and kind of split it in half, I think that it's still bigger than what this is. This seems like it's a lot more compact, and it seems like there's actually more ports too, but we don't really know what the ports are for yet. So it's possible that there's some redundancy between the two of them. So technically there might be 2 ports, where on the current booster there's 1. But it does seem like there's maybe a few more connections. But overall, they definitely are more compact.
The main propellant line might be slightly larger.
Yeah, that could be, yeah, even on both of them. Well, with the bigger pump systems and so on, and the everything's a bit bigger on Pad B, isn't it? with as far as the cryogenic lines go.
One thing to add with the separation of the QD interfaces on this is that if you imagine a cylinder or a circle, and then you want to have a flat piece for the QD to interact with, the wider it is, the further out from the circle you have to place that, flat surface in order for like the middle of it to still not, interfere with the edge of the circle. So with the current booster, the two sides of the QD actually stick out pretty far. And when you take it and you split it in half and you make it more compact, that actually lessens how far out the QD interface has to sit from the surface of the booster. So that will actually improve your aerodynamics quite a bit, because you don't have something basically producing this like wing that, hanging out from the side of the booster. And given that these are going to be on the the bottom side of the booster when it is gliding back, you probably want them to have the least amount of interaction with some of the aerodynamics.
The underside of airfoil is also less critical as far as your laminar flow. Like on the underside of like commercial jets and everything else, that air can be really messy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And when they do want to slow down, they put the spoilers on top. All right, so that's the cryo stand. There's some awesome images of that this week, and it's interesting that they're advancing so quickly on this. They're not going to need this for still quite some time. They haven't even stacked the methane section of the first article to go on here yet, so this will be well and truly finished before the booster 18 is ready for cryo testing by the look of it.
So one other thing with this stand, I don't know if this has been pointed out before, but on the actual balls that sit on top of each of the clamp areas, where we have the three unique ones, it actually is a different ball. It's smaller. I don't know if this has been pointed out before. So those might be different for a specific reason. I'm wondering if it has something to do with indexing or some sort of sensing with the actual launch mount. It's possible that three of the arms are a little bit different in terms of how they operate. So we'll have to maybe see how that turns out. See if the same sort of thing shows up at the launch site. Because ideally, it should be the same design, but they're a little bit different. So
yeah,
I think the diameter of the actual hemisphere is smaller, is it?
Yeah.
It's definitely shorter. I don't know if the diameter is smaller.
Yeah, if the radius is the same, but there's more going on. Those seem like they're sort of the three main support. Sort
Are
of
they not
fixed.
just? Is it just this plate's higher? Look at the top of the pin to the top of the sphere. Is that similar in height? Is it just this plate here that's different?
Yeah.
Yeah, that offset is higher. So yeah, the top of the ball would be a little different. If you want to keep it the same plane across everything, then the top of the ball would have to be pushed down a little bit in reference to that plate.
Yeah, the only thing that really matters is that the top of the balls are on the same plane.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
So Kal-El is asking, is the new booster going to have cutouts for those clamps to hold down?
Yeah,
pockets.
it does. Yeah, there's
yeah.
basically little holes in the sides of the booster. There's 20 basically rectangular cutouts, and it's kind of welded to the main structure. So there's a void in the side of the booster where these little latches are going to curve into and hold the top of hold the booster basically from the bottom, but it's a different design than how they currently do it on the version 2 boosters.
So the outside diameter of the booster is sort of pretty well at the edge of this circle here, isn't it? The actual very outside edge of the booster. The sockets are very close to the edge of the booster over here. And yeah, there's like you said, there's a small hole for the cocky's beak to fit through. It's a fantastic photo. Some of these photos this week are just amazing. Okay, we better keep moving here. We'll go across. Oh no, show and tell. We spent so much time on this little deep dives here at Massey's. It was quite good. Let's go have a look at booster 13, shall we? It has some more engines removed. It's kind of amazing. It came up in show and tell. It's amazing, Ryan, how different the bottom of the booster is going to be now with the solar plate and sort of none of this sort of structure anymore, and none of the shielding. It's going to be quite different.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on in the bottom part of the booster than I think most people, realize. There's a lot more there's a lot more lines for pneumatics and everything else that typically go, unnoticed. We kind of only think about the major things, and yeah, there's a lot of fiddly bits, as some people might call it.
Yep, and here the render people have enjoyed the views of Booster 13 because it's given them some views of things they hadn't seen for quite some time.
Yeah, there was a discovery with the shielding on the center engines for the gimbaling engines that we haven't really noticed before, and that I was trying to see if you could see it here. I don't think you can. I don't think there's any examples actually visible right now. Maybe last week, but they actually have a little bit of a bump out, it's basically like a cylinder around like the main like power head of the engine. But there's like a bump out on the methane turbo pump side that allows clearancing for that turbo pump to stick out a little bit. And that's just because the engines are so tightly packed in there that with the shielding, and they have to make it small enough that they can then gimbal around each other without hitting. But that clearancing is kind of just indexed to the right spot so that it doesn't interfere with the other engines. And that was something that we'd kind of thought about for a long time, because as you're modeling stuff, it doesn't really make sense how things size wise worked out. And so we got our answer with Booster 13. It's just a little weird. The ship doesn't seem to have the same thing, so there are some differences there.
Absolutely. Okay, on to test tank. Well, that's test tank 17 or booster 18.1. I see there's a couple of different ways of naming this thing. I got a cryo test, well, in my time yesterday, your time last night. They seemed to fire up the tank farm, and did we see frost on it? I didn't actually end up seeing the end of that discussion, but it seemed to have gone through another test in the last 24 hours.
It looked pretty frosty at one point.
So moving on to the old can crusher, I had it pegged to be moving on to that new concrete slab, but they seem to have paint marks on the concrete here. It seems like it may stay there yet. There's a side shot down through here. Maybe we can see they've got spray paint around the legs. I'm not sure that's just because of where they landed it to start with, or that's what, to me, that makes it looks like that's going to be where they'll end up leaving it. And so, which opens a question as to what on earth this pad's for. It suits the new booster transport stands and the cryo stand, but maybe it's just a temporary parking place. Maybe it's somewhere to put a booster. If they have a booster up here when they're doing a static fire stand, we'll just have to see. This week we still see lots of conduit work. They've completed this bit of conduit in here, and it seems to be extending on over to, oh no, it's down here. We saw in here. You can see the conduits have been run in here, and then continues on to here. So they're still doing conduit work. And at the very front of the site, they've dug themselves a swimming pool. Well, so doing something there anyway. Not sure exactly what this great big hole is for. It's quite significant. Maybe another one of the booster parking bay? It seems quite deep. See, this is another question I thought of last night is this concrete didn't seem as thick as the concrete they had poured at the Rocket Garden where the permanent booster parking is. So I'm wondering whether this is something a bit sort of less, a bit more temporary parking. And even to get it in there with the SPMT's overhang, it's very confusing, that pad.
I think they're just going to rework a lot of the pipeway.
Even in here.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's big. Anyway, back to our swimming pool. So, so maybe this is more the thickness of what we saw at the Rocket Garden when they created the pads for parking the boosters over there.
This is almost as deep as the flame trench. I mean the propellant trench.
Second flame trench? Kidding.
Moving the main electrical bunker.
Maybe moving all this. You mean which bunker? The one that was over the
the main power, putting it in a bunker where those basically where those mega packs are.
Moving all this.
Yeah. I don't think you'd want to put anything that close to the edge without piles.
Have we missed anything here at Massey's now? I know lots of cars getting parked here recently. Like all the way along the highway here. I meant to show this last week. There's parking all the way along the highway, along the road in as well. So any last questions or donations from chat there, Matt?
We do have some donations. First off, we have a PayPal donation from Kenneth Becker, $25. Gas money, and thanks for what you do. Thanks so much for that, Kenneth. Then we also have Papa G, who sent in 1 gifted membership. We have Astro Joe, who sent in 1 gifted membership. Cursing Mom sent in 5 gifted memberships. We also have Crane Man that has sent in 5 gifted memberships. And we have Pete, who sent in $10 Australian, saying happy birthday, Mauricio.
Some good old Aussie dollars going in there. Good on you. Okay, thank you for all that. And with that, we'll move on to Sanchez. Okay, Sanchez, where they build things. Let's start over at this end, shall we? So this week we see the rams installed in the mystery frame, which I'm still guessing is something to do with breakover. Similar to SLS, the SLS lifting frame that's on top has a system where they can adjust the length of the slings. I've got an idea. I understand these. There's no sort of there's no movement in these left and right here, but these top joints may have some ability to have this angle slightly. So if these two were to extend together and these two were to retract together, that would put these two beams at a slight angle to each other, which could adjust the length of the straps down to the booster, which they do on the SLS lifting frame as well. But still, there's still a lot of speculations what this is. So
I've looked at the images. That's not possible. The flanges that they have at the top, no. It's the pistons on this side have to move at the same length. Otherwise, you will bind and you will have problems. So, yeah, there's gonna be 2 pistons on this side with like basically a rod or frame connecting them, and then on the other side you have the 2 pistons that are yet to be installed or laying up there to the left. So the pairs here will have to extend and retract at the same amount. There is no twisting or anything like you were mentioning.
It's only a
They'll
couple of degrees
it's
too.
they'll rock whichever axis there, because SLS you can move it in Y and X, and you
Yeah.
would do the same. However, the upper attachment of this, which
So
is
the
yet to be
one
determined.
Go on, right?
the one thing I was going to add too, it wasn't pointed out yet, but you can't see it in this image, but in ground photography you can. Basically this makes like a T shape, like an upside down T at the bottom or the top of the T, which would, if you put your hand right there where your cursor is, on the very top of that bar, there's actually two little protruding kind of pins. So something is going to sit on the top of this once they get everything situated, and they're like there's 4 indexing pins between the two sides for something to sit on top of it. So not really sure what that means. But yeah, the structure is a little interesting with the constraints that it has and what it seemingly might be used for.
And do you have any ideas on the retractable pins down at this pivot point? Then, if it was just to rock backwards and forwards and could hinge on that, I'm wondering what that the retractable pins down the bottom may be for.
I have not seen the retractable pins. I guess the only ground photography I've seen show or don't actually see the bottom of it. So that's something I haven't seen. Now, ideally, you do want to have the ability to lock that from rocking, like in position if you're moving it or you're at a point in your lift where you don't want the pistons to be able to tilt the frame. You still want to have that ability to lock it. So that's what I would presume they're used for.
Cool. Hopefully one day we get to see them actually using this frame, which still points towards being breakover. The top to be on top of the booster. So below this would be slings down to the booster for actually breakover. It's for the crane to attach some either to the top or it's upside down somehow for lowering down the booster to give them some control over the top of the booster. I guess you're still thinking that, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm not really sure on the orientation of this in the end. The top of it doesn't exactly look very strong compared to the bottom, so I'm not exactly sure how forces are going to be exerted on it or like what path they're going to take. If the booster's going to sit on top of this and this is on the ground, or if this is lifted in the air by a crane and suspended, and I'm not entirely sure on that quite yet. I think we need to see a couple more pieces maybe added to it.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, move over to the transport stand. This week we see the... Oh, no, we don't. I thought we saw the spheres installed, sorry. The spheres are just sitting here ready to... They're new, though. They've added these pieces.
Yeah, that's their clamp.
Oh, they're the clamps.
mechanism.
They've added the clamps. Sorry, yeah. And these balls have to go down in here. That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, there's a recess.
That's right. You have to excuse me. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. So we see the cocky beaks this week installed, all nicely integrated into the arms there. Okay, this week we also see the platform for the workstation for the right-hand side front of Gigabay 2, and we saw that go in last week. We saw this platform and the top ring, which used to be further over to the right there. We've got another, people are calling a nose cone lifting jig. I'm not sure exactly if that's correct, but they're making another one over here. There's more parts here for another one of them. I guess being an R&D site, we're starting to see some of the R&D actually getting mass produced now into this factory, and we may see that change in the future. So that's good to see them starting to finalize some of their designs already. So I'm sure that'll change that could very much change in the future as they R&Ding more. Okay, so that's the top of the workstation was sitting in there. Moving on to the black and white platforms. This is significantly different this week. They've got a 3-story one, and one of the main speculations in our show and tell is that this could be for a quad, and these could be for the three ring barrel sections. We've got a nose cone one from last week still over there.
The main thing that confuses me, I guess, with the bottom left here is you have the platforms which create the circle that fold up, but then you have the corner pieces here. I mean, are those going to be removable or fold, or because the point of those platforms retracting is so you can lift a barrel section in here, without worrying about hitting any of the deployed platforms, because I assume the clearances are kind of tight. But then you've got these little corner pieces that are kind of just existing. I feel like that would make it just as difficult to, position a barrel over the top of this, but maybe they move and they're just static in there right now. I have no idea.
Yeah, it looks like it'd be more dangerous since you have all those sharp corners.
Not to mention that, they're attached where they're the skinniest, so, I mean, breakable.
Yeah, does seem to be a bit of a funny design for sure.
I'm surprised they didn't have, the left or the right side of that platform folded up that had a little triangular extension on a hinge where you fold the one down and then you fold the platform down and then the triangle folds out from the side. I'm not sure why they didn't do something like that.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I didn't think of that. There's still some more parts for more of them, at least one more triple. Plus there's a couple of doubles. Plus there's still parts for more of the frames. Just trying to find don't seem to have as many of these longitudinal pieces. Oh, there's some over there, I think. I don't know, they are them. They don't have these ones have a taper on them. Maybe they are. Maybe that's as many as they're going to make after all. Okay, over at the SQD arm, doesn't seem to be a lot going on here. I guess they're plugging away slowly. There are workers here, so I guess things are happening slowly in that arm. But once again, it's not a real high priority item either at the moment. We do seem to have 2 new torque rods for the chopsticks landing rail. We notice on pad B the sticks have this torque rod system set up to keep the landing rail horizontal at all times throughout its travel up and down. So whether adding these to pad A, which seems a bit premature, or they're adding a second lot to pad B sticks, or they're just replacing the ones on pad B sticks.
See, I'm not so sure that these are new. I mean, if you look at the various places, they do appear like they're covered in rust. So I don't think that they're new, but they're maybe new to Starbase.
Okay, yeah.
Looks like they were cut down because it looks by the basket on the top of frame. It looks like there's cut ends.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, those look like cutoffs.
You mean just here?
No, but the basket, there's 2
Oh,
rusty
gotcha. Yeah.
plastic feet. Yeah, it looks like they were cut down.
It's an odd length to be cut down.
Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, the pieces aren't long enough to be a modification from long sticks to short sticks, is it? Sort of in between. So there's some humans for scale. Looks like they are actually working on the plumbing in here. Once again, using this modular design, which is good to see.
Gotta be awkward working at that
Working on
angle.
something sideways, which should be vertical. It's kind of like walking through a fun house.
Yeah.
I'd reckon. Well, it may make some things easier, but yeah, you'd think it'd be a bit awkward. We've got some manifolds here for the top of the hippos, maybe for Massey's methane.
They need 2 more for the lock side.
Yeah, there's actually 4 of these. Oh, hang on, no, that's right. The methane ones are there, aren't they? Yeah, these will be for the lock side. Yes, that's correct. Sorry. Alex, is this piece of tube similar to what's under the 2 big methane tanks at the launch site?
It's pretty much identical. It has the same top and side port.
And it's a larger vessel than the actual pipes as well, similar. So that could be for the methane side at Massey's.
Yeah, it's probably... It looks like they're changing up their reclamation system.
Is that a second one?
Yep.
Okay, yep. I actually didn't notice the second one through show and tell. Okay. Right. The area this will do. Last week we didn't really notice, but there's 2 power packs here, new Tesla power packs. They could be going in on this area here.
Yeah, they got the stub outs. Kind of looks like there'd be 2, maybe. Oh, I was talking about the up on the left. There's giant pipes. Left by the red mat. There you go.
Yeah, it seemed to have one. I'm assuming these are step-up transformers. They seem to have one per pair of the Tesla packs. What I'm assuming is
2 more.
Yeah, 2. Yeah, we might get 4 more. What I'm assuming is there's the 136 volts coming in off the highway, getting kicked down to the 2 or 7,000 volts for distribution around the whole site, and then at the different areas around the site, there's the step-down transformers from the 2 or 7,000 volts back down to the 480 volt 3-phase. What I'm assuming is these power packs are outputting the 480 volt 3-phase, and they're kicking it up. They're stepping the voltage back up to the 2 or 7,000 volt local area distribution, so intermediate voltage. And I think that's why we saw that step-up transformer from Starship Gazer's ground photos. I think what's going on there, because these power packs output at 480 volt 3-phase. And the distances involved, as every electrician knows, once you get over a certain amount of distance, voltage drop in your cables becomes a real issue. And the main issue is if you get a voltage drop at an electrical motor, the current has to go up to compensate to create the same amount of power. And heat is a bad thing for any electrical system. So you don't want any voltage drop. So to counter voltage drop, they kick up in transmission. Obviously, they kick up to higher voltage, which I think most people understand that concept. Okay, it's going to be a short Sanchez section, I think. Okay, I'll move over to the rocket garden area. This week we see the water tank SN2 actually moved into the scrapyard. So its fate has been sealed, which I think we all thought that anyway. And they've moved a couple of things here to get it in. So this is the old 2-point lifting jig here, lifting rig. There's one there, and the other half of it's in here. And that's an old Booster 4 engine bell.
They practiced their stenciling on it, you can see.
There, what, sorry?
Stenciling the E numbers, they
Ah,
practiced on it.
yeah, stenciling it. They certainly have. Can't see much more development on scrapping that old booster cryo stand yet. And good old ship 26 is still with us. Okay. They still haven't quite finished that drainage system over here. Still haven't quite finished the drainage system over here. I imagine water's flowing through it when it rains at the moment, but it's just got to finish a bit of concreting and finish a bit over here. And I saw a mark in here last week, so I imagine they're going to put this curved section in here as well. That hasn't quite happened yet. It looks like ground prep has happened for it though. Ship 20. Was it this week or last week? We see booster 16 out at the Rocket Garden now. Booster 12 in the bay. Booster 12, I'm not sure. What do you reckon? Getting scrapped? Or what do you reckon, chat? They can scrap Booster 12 or put it on display somewhere? It's not going to fly, that's for sure. So they're doing something with it.
I think it's going to be saved, yeah. Their operations, the whole order of everything doesn't make any sense if they were going to scrap it.
Yes, I believe that's correct. I'll come to that at the build, so I've got a better photo of that. They seem to put that back together again. Sanchez, I think that's everything covered at Sanchez. It wasn't a great deal this week. I mean, things are moving forward quite well, but there's just not as many projects as normal here at the moment, which will change soon once they start doing Gigabay and creating another. Once they start doing Pad A again, refurb, there'll be a lot more work going on here once again. Okay, so we got any questions for Sanchez there, Matt?
Well, we do have a late question that came in from Massey's. It's more of a speculation question, but they were just wondering, do we know kind of about how long it's going to be until they can hold a static fire for Block 3?
I'm going to say, like I said last time when they first built the flame trench at Massey's, it'll happen a lot quicker than a lot of people realise, I think, especially with the new modular systems they're using. Before the end of the year, more than likely. I mean, just remember that a version 3 ship is yet to be assembled, 39, let alone cryo tested, and then engine fitted. So I'm pretty sure Massey's will beat the airframe.
I think it'll probably be about the same time. Yeah, the ship is pretty far behind, but you know they have a lot of the bigger sections together, and stacking the vehicle usually doesn't take that long, especially in the case of like ship 33. They just went through that very quickly. So I think Massey's might be ready by like November maybe. And then we'll see, I guess, where the ships are in their testing campaign at that point.
True.
Perfect. And then we got a few gifts. 55 Chevy Guy Steve sent in 5 gifted memberships. We have Jacques sent in 1 gifted membership. We had The One and Only sent in 1 gifted membership. And Chromatic sent in 1 gifted membership. Otherwise, we're clear.
Thank you very much for that, for all that donation and gift of memberships. We very much appreciate it. It helps us stay and helps RGV stay in the air and bring these wonderful photographs to you all, which are awesome. These photos are just amazing. With the new lower altitude and the new lens, we're getting some photos that we haven't seen for quite some time. Okay, moving on to the build site and Gigabay. Boy, are they going fast on this thing. We can see lots of blinding layers being poured, and of course the rebar work has started. We can see that the outside slab is going to be significantly thicker than the center section. Oh, that's like 8 feet thick. Sorry for all the Aussies and Europeans there, I'm speaking feet there, but yeah, it's about 2.5, 3 meters thick.
Looks like 2.5 from the ladders.
Yep. I'm from an era where our parents spoke feet and miles as well as grew up with the metrics, so I can kind of speak both. Now, Alex and BJ, you were speculating here that perhaps barrel sections may come through here.
Yeah, perhaps they'll side load so they won't clog up the center transfer aisle. Because unlike that side, the center, the wall behind the workstation, there's piles, so probably there'll be columns. On the Star Factory side, they're missing. So it looks you have a clean shot coming from the factory directly in. And the overheads from Roberts Road, they have piles in those sections. So this is a definite change from the Gigabay at Roberts Road.
And since you brought my name up, I'll jump in here. And what Alex just said is actually not true. This side of the building is actually identical to how Roberts Road is.
I thought I saw plates in the center of those at Roberts Road. I'll have to look. I might have my bearings flipped. Because you are the expert.
When you're looking at most of the Roberts Road images from the various flyovers and satellite images, kind of it would be the western wall is the right hand wall, so it's kind of flipped a little bit. But yeah, the way that the columns are, the piles are set up and everything, it definitely, like you kind of introed it, it does lend some interesting thought that there's a doorway through each of those 6 workstation aisles, kind of to that breezeway to the right.
The breezeway here, yep. G'day, BJ.
So while we're talking about that specifically, Mokita actually has a question about that. They were saying, isn't it necessary that both travel paths would be equipped with the concrete piles? And why are there some piles that have a few more than others at some of the workstations?
Yeah, I mean, we don't see any piles in Florida for the actual aisles, so I don't think we're going to expect anything in the actual transfer aisles that go from the doorways in and out of the bay. Something I talked about on Thursday about why the piles are the way they are, highly speculative, but my thought is that on this side, all 6 are going to be stacking bays to what kind of the way the doorway theory and everything else. And I was thinking that each set of 3 would become a kind of a grouping of stacking cells, so that the one that Stephanie's hands on right now could potentially be where boosters are full stacked, and then that the cell left and right of it, top and bottom in this particular image, one could be for stacking lock spare tanks, one could be for the methane tank. And then essentially the aft would go straight to that middle section. You'd put the LOX tank on it and then put the methane tank on top of that. It would give them a way to simultaneously do tank sections. Right now in Mega Bay 1, their biggest holdup is that they can't start the methane tank until the LOX tank is stacked on the aft because they only have 2 turntables.
So in this group, and there's like you can see these three have a high like concrete slab, a deeper slab, and then the other high one. And the same up here, they mirror each other. So there's the sort of the groups of three have a similar. There's the high one, the low one, the high one, then again over here, the high one, the low one, and the high one again. Just to continue with that. The only thing with that, I was just thinking as you're saying that, fair enough, there's two turntables, fair enough to bring barrels in. Then this alleyway may not be needed as an alleyway where they do the pull stack, perhaps.
Well, that one would need, because the aft section would still have to come in through that particular
Gotcha.
one. So it would potentially still have the same kind of access. Something that we may see because of the kind of that whole, there's that theory that there's going to be a second phase where another Gigabay would replace Megabay 1 and get connected to the other end. There are a few very small differences in how the expected stacking cells are between the Florida Bay and the Starbase Bay, because the two that have the deeper cells with the 8 piles in it, that does not exist in the current phase at Roberts Road. At Roberts Road, it's just the 3 piles at the aisle end of the workstation. So one of the theories I had was that if both sites were going to have a phase 1 and a phase 2 Gigabay, so you'd have essentially 12 cells in the long section, and have 48 total workstations. What we could be seeing maybe is that Starbase is building the booster half, Florida is building the ship half, and then when you build the secondary half of each one, you would have essentially a mirrored bay with a star factory to the ones to the turntable side of the Gigabays. And the reasoning behind that is that my thought is that the reason that the Florida Bay currently doesn't show the extra foundation work is that the ship stacking sections may not require as much strength underneath the workstations, where the boosters would, even though we know that the Block 3 ship may be nearly as tall as a booster, so maybe there's not a lot of credibility to that. But that is one of the distinct differences between the two bays right now.
They could be built, yeah. They might be doing the other half as more the refurbished half while the whole factory's being built. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some logic there too. I mean, it's just one of those things where you kind of start thinking through, well, why are there these slight differences? Obviously, in the pile layouts are a little bit different, but I think that's more relative to soil conditions between the two sites, and it doesn't really have as much to do with how they're actually going to be constructed above grade.
Yeah, if you what you said there, BJ, that makes a lot of sense for like this being the booster half, and then when they take down Megabay 1, they would build like the ship half of the Gigabay extension, and it's just kind of unfortunate that kind of toward the front here is where we have the ship assembly lines for like the nose cones and stuff, but that would end up having to be part of the back phase. So now you, unfortunately, because of your logistics, you have ship pieces that are going to have to go to the back, and then booster pieces come to the front, and you get them with a crisscross, which, maybe that's fine, maybe, whatever. But yeah, that's kind of unfortunate with the way that the logistics work and, trying to build these things and keep things going without shutting down assembly lines.
I mean, if you think that breezeway probably remains relatively open, and kind of going back to the other part with the Florida Bay having 6 very almost identical 6, that would be that your flow would then be 6 ships could be stacking simultaneously there, while 2 boosters are stacking here or there, if this kind of theory plays out. And that might be more in line with that kind of production rate that they need, because obviously we know that way more ships are going to be needed to be built than boosters because of the reuse of boosters being a little bit more rapid.
Could eventually this be ship, so they can bring ship stuff straight here, and eventually this phase 2 be dedicated for boosters, so it does work the right way around?
I think that would be a lot of redesign, a lot of reconfiguring that might not be necessary.
And you figure that breezeway will probably be boxed in fairly quickly.
Yeah, that
So
hallway should remain relatively open because really, once you enter that hallway with a section, that section
So
has an intended cell that it's going to go to, and they can
yeah,
immediately get it turned in, put in place, and now the hallway is open again. So it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. It's more so what I was pointing out was just that they're kind of having to crisscross with the assembly lines, but that's fine because that hallway should remain mostly open.
yeah. I mean, if they're side loading the barrel section right there, it'll, as long as it doesn't get backed up and used as like the old ring yard was.
Yeah, and it's really only the nose cone that has to, in that kind of long-term thought, the nose cone would really be the only thing that would have to take a long distance because all of your barrel sections would be able to still come straight out. Yeah, you'd have to bring your booster ones down towards the taller part of the building, but that doesn't mean they have to come out those top 3 doors. They could come out down farther as well.
there's a breezeway in here too. There's an alley in here as well.
Yes.
Okay, I did see someone ask where the doorways are going to be. Interesting to see where the doorways are going to be. We can tell it's here, isn't it? There's a doorway here.
Yep, the big group of 6 rows of piles there to the left and right. So and that crane's pretty much sitting right in the end of the transfer aisle, and then
And the
those
same
piles
here.
left and right. Yep, exactly.
Yep. Thanks, BJ, for your input there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've spent a few too many hours thinking and comparing and looking and tracking piles and all that to care to think about.
Yeah, I know.
You did a Jax on us. We went BJ, 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 and you popped in. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thankfully. Yeah.
Okay, so that's Gigabay. That's coming along nicely, and we're starting to see some nice detail there, and speculations are running rampant, which is awesome to see. We love our speculations. Some people seem to, I don't know. I reckon it's a good thing we speculate. Personally. Okay, let's move on to Megabay 1 after all that.
I was going to say, speaking of speculation, I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Evert asks, could the Gigabay and Starbase have 1 booster stacking row and 3 ship stacking rows on the other side of the Star Factory side lane and the other lane? Not sure.
So there should be a lane. There should be a lane across here. Like they'll be able to bring stuff around that way. Sorry, Ryan.
No, that wasn't actually me, but I did have a point to add that, yeah, I was actually looking at that, wondering how they would deal with the logistics there. Do you have a shot, Stephanie? Actually, the couple to the right about showing the size comparison. There's a zoomed out one about 8 images to the right that shows kind of the full build site. Just 2 more. That one. If we look at like the footprint of the Gigabay compared to, where Megabay 1 and Megabay 2 is, it kind of seems like if they go into a phase 2 where they were to build, the second part of it, that it would encompass the entire footprint of Megabay 1 and 2. So that would kind of imply that they would have to have some ship production inside phase 1. That way they're not completely, stopping, ship production. So it's likely that some of the stands on that far wall near the parking garage will probably have to be for ship, and those will likely have to be reconfigured later to, probably be for booster, or maybe they keep them for ship, just knowing that they, like we were saying, they may have a higher production rate for ship. So maybe there's, 3 along that side that will handle the initial ship stacking, and then when phase 2 is done, then they, not even double, but like almost, quadruple their ship production.
Yeah, and to kind of spear off of that, from what we had heard, was that this base really is only going to have 6 turntables in it. It's something that David said in some previous show and tells. My thought on that would be that while I talk about this being two groups of 3 stands for building boosters, I could see an initial phase being that one section is boosters, and initially they might set up 3 of them that could potentially stack ships in the short term, and then be converted later on. But I'm pretty sure, based off of those plans that have been seen at some of the launch site kind of gatherings during launches, that there wouldn't be multiple lanes of turntables, which I think goes back to the original question a little bit more closely.
Cool. Okay, is that it for Gigabay? Let's trot off to Megabay 1. I can't see much in Megabay 1 this week. We've got 15 and 12, Vista 15 and Vista 12 in there. They seem to be working on 15, yeah? That's on to Megabay 2. This is one of the best shots we've had in Megabay 2 for quite some time, showing all the new work platforms all the way up for the ship, which makes it a lot easier than having to construct scapfungus every time they want to do some tiling on the ship.
Yeah, SpaceX, if you're listening, we do want to see more video inside this building because it's very very properly built out for ship construction. So yeah, we definitely enjoy all the views that we get inside of the Megabay 2 building.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to breeze through the build site here a bit. Down here, we did notice this week that they've put the ship cryo stand, they put it back together again this week. So I'm not sure what they modified it for version 3 ships, but it looks very similar. So it doesn't look like there's a great deal of change to the bottom of the version 3 ship. Also this week we see more of the platform construction continuing for possibly Gigabay 1. Okay, around the back, how's the time? Yeah, around the back here, finally we see the temporary unloading frame has been removed. It's actually sitting just here. There it is there. It's all been packed up. So that indicates that they're actually, I think there's a photo somewhere of a FedEx truck actually backed into a bay here somewhere as well. It's good to see shipping and receivables has come, and a lot of this has been tidied up as well, so probably placed in this area here as well. Coming back to my local area, high voltage stuff, this is sort of the step down transformers to bring it back to 483 phase here as well. We see them all over the site. I very much doubt they'll be transmitting 100 and whatever it is. I think he's got 136,000 volts down Highway 4 at this site.
I know that's what they're running to the launch site.
Yeah, at least the launch site, yeah. Which I'd imagine is the same all the way along.
Do we want to address the Skywalker in the room?
Sorry, of course. Yeah. The elephant in the room. Exactly. What are your thoughts on this there, Ryan? Is it the actual one or is it a mock-up?
No, I think this is a mock-up. I think that we've probably seen, many SpaceX employees post their photos with the Dragon cupola and, the Earth in the background that they get, when they maybe visit Hawthorne. I imagine that this is probably very similar, but for Starbase, maybe new hires will have photo opportunities inside the office building somewhere, and I'm guessing this probably got shipped here, and they'll be using it for just a photo opportunity.
So this, of course, is Polaris Dawn, which is, we're saying was Resilience, is that right? Polaris Dawn?
Possibly. I can't remember which one it is.
Yes, Resilience was the capsule for Polaris Dawn.
Yeah. And this is that whole top they can unbolt, which can also have the cupula, or the docking ring on it, and where there's the exhaust for the 4 thrusters, and the nose cones hinge point here.
Yeah, I imagine this was probably a mock-up that they may have used for training for that mission, and now they may converted it to just a photo opportunity. Maybe there's a new version, I guess, that they might use for future training. Not sure, but the only reason why this would be at Starbase that I could come up with would be just for a photo opportunity for new employees, because there's no commonality between this and Starship, at least at this point in the program. There's no reason why this would be here. It's not even applicable for HLS.
Yeah, it's not even. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not even like a docking adapter or anything like for actually docking to the space station or anything like that. Well, like saying, zero G safety handles, zero G handlebars. Sorry, old tech guy. So yeah, it's where Isaacman, what's his name, Rocky, popped his head out of. Okay, on to the ring yard here. I don't think we've noticed much difference here this week. Oh, there's these more of these press forms for domes, but we see them from time to time. It's nothing new, really. Still some clamps sitting there. Moving over to the new apartment building, we can see more of the construction going up to more floors. The questions posed, why don't they do all the ground floor first? I guess one simple question is so they don't, one simple answer, I guess, is so they don't have to keep moving the crane around as much and all the crane mats, they can sort of finish a section and then move on.
I think structurally they'll have to tie together as sort of one cohesive unit.
Yeah, I was going to add that, yeah, it'd basically be like a waterfall as they go around, as you kind of stack it together.
In here we can see the elevator shaft. They've actually got one of those construction elevators installed in there. Looks like they may be going, I'm not sure how many floors. Looks like they're going up another floor at perhaps 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe going up another floor again by the look of it. At least, maybe that's the top, maybe that'll be the roof line way up there. I think last week we noticed a stairwell section over on the far. There's a stairwell over there and an elevator shaft in here. More panels, continuing on. Looks like there's an open area down here. This week, once again, concrete doesn't last very long around Starbase. It looks like they're moving this gate, possibly to here. I'm not sure why exactly, but I noticed the one on Meme Street is a bit further down as well. It's like sort of lines up over here somewhere, sort of lines up there. So for some reason they seem to be moving the gateway, which is unusual.
Yeah, to me it actually looks more like they've changed their control system or something. That pad that was cut up there looks like it's in the place where they would have the magnetic sensors to sense that there's a car there to open the gates for exiting without a key card. So I don't know that they're moving it. I think there may be just something in the actual gate systems that are changing.
Because and then they're sort of rewiring, I guess, as well as.
Yeah, because there's a new conduit actually right down the middle there on the bottom side.
Yeah. Is that not getting broken up, though? I mean, they may change that. Yeah, you could be right, BJ. Maybe putting the card, like you have to have a card, some kind of ID, is you wave at the machine to open the gates coming in. Okay. Over this section, the teleporter had one in mid-flight. This one here, one of the panels, mid-lift. Okay, so the rest of the build site, not much to see really. They're continuing their concrete work on LBJ Boulevard. Got that right? Yeah, LBJ, yeah. All the way down to here. A little bit more to go. Now you can actually, we've got more of an idea where the gate down here is going for this end of the village, so it'll be fully gated. Not any more work over there on the rec area. They do seem to have done some groundwork over the last few weeks, but that hasn't changed. So I guess we can go to any last questions and donations for the build site there, Matt.
We actually don't have any right now.
Cool. Well, let's move over to the launch site. We're doing really well on time today. Let's see how long the launch site takes us. Okay, we'll start. We might get through this quickly because we've got some SpaceX news to cover as at the end of this site. So we'll start over this side. There's some more concrete. That concrete was poured. That wasn't poured long after last week's flyover. Some more rebar ready for some more concreting along that edge.
I think that was poured last night.
This piece.
Yeah.
Yep. They're continuing getting that retention pond ready down in this area. I'll come around to the GSC bunker next.
I do have a couple of old questions that have been hanging out for a little while. Sputnik Geezer asks, do you think the towers will add a future crew access arm, or will the crew board pre-stack?
That's
I
an
think we'll
interesting idea.
we'll see an arm eventually, but I think that's not exactly high priority right now.
I would also
But
think they would maybe focus that more over in Florida instead of in Texas, personally.
Yeah, if it's a NASA mission, I foresee it. If crew were flying on Starship, I would foresee it probably going from Florida just because of the existing, crewed infrastructure that they do have in Florida.
Cool, thank you. Moving on to
one really quick last question is Actinaria asks, will Pad A be reconstructed to match Pad B, do you think, or are they going to probably turn it into a catch tower?
We have that question each week, and
absolutely.
Well, my speculation, a couple others, is that it will be a catch tower, and they'll build a new tower and trench out here. So I think Ryan, even you, I know there was Ryan Weber last week. We're talking about that.
Yeah, and they own a lot of that land out there. They just can't use it right now because of the being able to reclaim land and whatnot. There's regulations on that, which I know there's some stuff possibly in the works regarding that. But yeah, until we start seeing dirt move, we'd probably just don't really know what's happening.
Actually, eventually, I think next week there's something happening with that because they've just bought. Is it this side? They've just bought this massive, bigger land out here to help with that. Paperwork. Well, just one thing to note on that. I remember when remember the launch site used to end across here, the old D1, I guess you call it, and then all of a sudden, sort of without much ado, this whole triangle got filled in, which to me, I found that surprising how quickly that happened. I can kind of see that happening out here too, the paperwork going through, and I can see them filling in out here reasonably sooner more than later, I think. That's only speculation, of course.
There'd probably for this have to be public comment.
Of course, yep. Yeah, so those small areas, maybe not so much. And like this little thing in here as well, where they filled that in, that little strip in here, wherever it was, just here somewhere.
That section was a reclassification of what's connected waters as the USA. It might have fallen out of being covered by the environmental regulations because there's a massive change to them from a Supreme Court case that happened like 3 months prior to them filling everything in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to the bunker. The GSC. No. We can see they've started to add some shielding, so it won't be too long before we won't get any of the views into This area, though, I must say, there's been quite a few thousands of photos, hundreds at least of photos of inside this bunker as it's being built, so we're quite spoiled as far as that's concerned. So, but never mind, we always knew it was going to be covered over, and perhaps that'll cover over all the way across to the actual edge, come across and go all the way to the edge of the actual pancake up there.
The top panels are by the ship QD arm.
Over
for
there,
covering
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Over at Sanchez, yeah. We can see we saw last week the methane side having these red bits hooked up, which more than likely hydraulics, because electrics are up here and the gas and the main oxygen cryo lines more like in the center there. This week they seem to be, look, last week these were covered over. They seem to be somehow changing these bases for this leg that goes in here. This same black leg here has to go from there down to there. For some reason they're changing they haven't changed the embeds obviously, but they've somehow changed the concrete around them. And I'm not sure they weren't covered over because there was steel plates on here last week covering these up. So for some reason they've had to change something in there.
I think they're cutting it out wider because when they poured the concrete, they got it too close to the bolts, so that the length of the beams that fit there actually goes below the grade of the concrete possibly, and they didn't leave enough room because you can see the saw marks almost on the second or the top one there. You can see they're cutting it wider, probably because they got the concrete too close.
Yep. And if you think of the logistics of all the amount of different groups of contractors and the amount of different tradesmen here, little things like that, I mean, you can't have 100% perfect, so little errors are going to happen.
It also could have been intentional. Just leave where the bolts are on poured, just so that the plate spanning it doesn't have to.
Yeah. So I thought they'd already done this. This one, they've only actually just done the cutout. That's a good observation there, Ryan. Okay, this week we see the clamps up nice and close again. Where's that photo? So we can see they've retracted. Oh wow, you can see how I didn't see this photo on the show and tell. You can see just how the plate covers the hole here for the clamp arms. That's that plate down there. Covers the hole good. Still no real indication of what these slots are yet. Any ideas there, Ryan?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was modeling these arms, the first thing that came to mind was that, yeah, I mean, it's not going to completely cover that hole. And part of the issue I think they have with the Pad 1 launch mount is that even though the arms retract, they basically retract into a little cubby, and your clamps and the blocks that the booster actually sits on is still mostly exposed to, the heating of the plume, especially on the booster QD side of the ring. And so with this setup, they've got their ball that'll be sitting on the basically the top of the arms. That will be able to retract, further into the launch mount, but they probably still want to have something to possibly cover that area. So I'm still holding out that they might have some kind of a cover or a hood that closes down in here. The geometry is a little interesting, and I know they've done a lot of work since they moved the mount out here, so there's a lot of unknowns inside there, but I am still expecting to see some kind of a hood show up to cover that upper cavity.
Yeah, they have really reinforced either side of those slots that are on either side of the opening.
Yeah, there's another shot here of a different angle. You can actually see, not that one. We can see some grind marks on either side of that.
there's like a pattern of like 4 weld marks and like a square pattern, and there's a couple of them repeated around on that inner wall surface. So, but yeah, you can see them there. It's not
Yeah.
really sure, I guess, if I think one of the ideas you guys had in show and tell was for the heating mats that they maybe attached for doing some heavy welding in there. Seems possible, I suppose.
It looks more like they drilled and put some sort of pin they welded stuff on the backside. Because I don't think you'd drill holes for the heating mats.
Yeah, they do kind of seem like that, or I don't know if they weld the heating mats on, or if they like somehow tape them. I have no idea. Either they could be tack welds that they ground down and now they're rusting, because it's unpainted. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, the geometry up there was bizarre. Oh, look, they painted more of the lower methane hood. Oh no.
Okay, this week we saw the. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why it's funny in a second. They put this little triangle piece in. I don't. Is that it right there? Is that the actual? No.
Yeah.
Is that the? Yeah, that's the piece. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I just
a other shot that shows it.
one of those down shots. It's underneath the tarp. This over here, this wall section has been put in as well, or mostly anyway. Now, this concrete slab here, boy, did we talk about this for quite a few hours the other day, or yesterday. They seem to have made a change, and Alex and I can't quite work out whether they've moved the steel cage square to or whether they're illusion. So looking at last week, the actual steel runs at an angle. We've got to look at this bar up here. The steel, it must be a better shot. The steel actually runs at an angle. This way steel runs at an angle to the trench, and this week it seems to be a lot squarer in this way. So I'm not sure if they've actually shoved the steel to make it parallel. I'm not sure why, but they've changed something, and perhaps also moved all the embeds around. Because even if they shoved the steel in that way, doesn't explain why these are overhanging now. So it seems like they've rotated the embeds around this way a little bit, with the center of the rotation being below the center pin of the chopsticks here. So they needed more clearance, or the angle was wrong. Not sure what they've done, but they've had to move these embeds. We can see is this shot sharp?
You can see the old orange spray paint too. If you to the left here, the square, you can still see like an outline of orange spray paint of where that plate might have been. Same with some of the other spots as well. And I think they even actually there's some new spots where it seems like it's fresh paint. So there's kind of a mix here going on. But I know at one point they did have an outline of where the embeds were supposed to go on the rebar. Then they showed up there, and obviously now the embeds are in a different spot.
And they're enlarging this surface as well.
So I'm unsure if they've moved the embeds over in relation to the trench, or whether they've moved the cage closer to the trench to make it square, and then to make the spacing from the trench to the embeds, they've obviously had to move the embeds over a bit after they move the cage.
I'm not sure they would have moved the cage, because it would have been tied to any of the piles or stuff that's below. That would have been a nightmare to try and like slide that. I think the cage is still in place, but they're changing where the embeds are on the surface of the cage.
Most of the time you don't tie off to the piles, as crazy as that sounds.
So in last week's photos, this shows it a bit better. I'll find a better photo still. The cage, these bars are at an angle to the wall. Look again here.
Well, keep in mind that wall is angling down, and you're not perfectly in line with the scaffolding. The scaffolding might not be straight. There's a lot of factors there. I would not use that as your measuring tool.
Yeah, if you go by, well, I guess last week they excavated out some more, but it does kind of look like the dirt at the corner, at the kind of the bottom right corner, well, top left, but the corner on the towards the beach, the cutouts of where that the embed where the rebar is relative to the dirt looks pretty much identical. I even disregarding the pile being connected to piles, I don't think there's any way you could actually move that cage. That thing is monstrous.
I mean, because realistically, you can just pick up the embed and drop it into another, set of openings. So that'd be far easier than trying to move the whole cage.
And structurally, it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense.
Because you can add onto the cage too. If the embed starts sliding off to the side, just, build a couple more,
Well,
grid to the cage.
yeah, there's also the hoops for doing that piled up by it.
That scaffold could be on an angle, but it does look like anyway. Yeah, I understand. BJ is saying this side here seems to is remaining the same. Sure, I understand that too.
The other big difference is they had already tied off the upper bars, and in the current picture, they have the upper deck not tied since they're sliding to make room to lower those down into place. Because you can see the double bars and everything is nice and square.
So then this way, I mean, sure, it could be an illusion and sure, scaffolding, whatever, but when we look at this week's photo, it seems particularly square with all the scaffolding so on, which, like you say, it could be an illusion and it's not. It may not be a good metric to judge by, but it just seems that way. I mean, I spent way too many hours the other day talking about this and looking at it, and we look backwards and forwards.
I've seen some shots that makes it look like it stayed static, and
Like
it's
it was
just
okay.
yeah, and it's just because when they installed and pulled out these embeds, they had to move the rebar to make room. Because there's a bottom plate on these. They're not just the vertical legs going down.
Yeah, the four corners had that extra embed that we saw a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it's like a square tube and a plate. So pulling it up, you have to untie a lot of the bar to free it. Because like the center field of it is still fairly square. It's only where the embeds are that the longitudinal and lateral bars are just all over the place.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in this area here, they've concreted over the water deluge pipes. So, but anyway, at least, yeah, the embeds have moved, and then we're going to have to put new formwork around. Consider put the hurdles up again to put the new, to put everything in place. Looks like there's a hurdle for each of these lines of embeds.
Yeah, you can see the string line in some of the shots.
Yeah.
Pretty much bisecting the embed.
It's some awesome photos this week. Okay, moving along. Let's go over to this area.
Do we have to?
What's your favorite area, Alex?
It's all in testing configuration.
Okay, here's the shot I was looking for. So testing configuration. Oh, where was that we were looking at? It's in here, is it?
It's on the right side, the right arm of the H. The other side towards Highway 4. Right.
Talking about those units at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, where they're just for pressure testing all the lines.
So these are independent pressure line, pre-pressed lines here, but they've got them linked together here, and maybe even there's a T. We think there's a T in here. So they've for pressure testing, they're doing some funky type plumbing. This
And
week
if
we
it is,
see, go on.
and if it is split for ship and booster, there's gonna be a lot more pipes in there soon.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that yet, but sure, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. This week we see some more of the high pressure lines as well being hooked into the skids here. Skids, I guess it's the same word, isn't it? Here we can see the ship's cryo pipes for the LOX and the methane return perhaps hooked up. These look fairly hooked up. So all the little tiny areas around the site are sort of slowly getting more and more complete. In this shot we can see they've removed the plumbing across here to allow the SPMT to drive in this tank. So we should see this tank soon rather than later.
Yeah, it should be very soon, given the fact that a 24-axle SPMT came to the launch site last night, and there's some images that say that the tank that's going to go there was seen at McGregor yesterday morning.
Yep.
Cool. And over this side as well, they've removed the manifold piece here. So they looks like they won't need a crane after all. They'll be able to bring the SPMT in through there as well. Yesterday, we saw some venting in here. So they've ran at least one set of these gas generators, more than likely this set, and vented out through their stacks in here. And come back this shot for that. Vented out of their stacks down here. Once again, the crane's in the way. And maybe they took this pipe out and put a cap on here, perhaps, so they didn't charge these pipes, charge these tanks, which would have put pressure throughout the whole pipe, all the way down into the flame trench.
It's wide open at the bottom, whereas the mystery on the at the opposite side of the Y, where it dips.
Wide open there, yeah.
Yeah. So none of the pressure would have gone. Plenty of places for it to escape.
Sure, but but we did see gases escape here, so it's more than likely, and it seemed fairly forceful. So it's more than likely they blocked this up, I would imagine.
I'm pretty sure they did.
Okay, the wall's sort of slowly continuing. So they're looking like they'll be tidying up this area soon. Somehow there's water in here somewhere. We'll see the water pop up here one of these days, I'm sure. Okay, we'll move on to the center section. I think, yeah, here we go. Onto the mega bunker, which seems to, now, here we have some point. Oh, it's this section just in here. Is like a cathedral ceiling with a mezzanine level in here. I'm wondering if that'll stay like that or whether there's actually going to be more beams put in here yet. But for now, the upper floor is missing.
I think it's probably going to stay open.
And then like a second floor all the way around. A little outside, perhaps, if this is amenities building, which is speculating whether it's amenities building or not. It could be a little outdoor eating area, or for some reason it's not symmetrical, but for some reason this has been left open. If it were amenities, there's no plumbing or conduits, but they could possibly come up in this little gap in the dirt along here. It's the only reason we think maybe it's amenities, but the lack of conduits in here sort of makes it a bit confusing. Okay, the tank farm, the pump farm. Well, we're at 2 hours already. Yeah, we've done well. We haven't even started on the big news this week. Into this farm, we saw those pipes change last week. We see this connected here this week, I think, for the first time. We saw last week a pump, and that was actually the engine in. That was the motor in that crate. We were correct in thinking that. So is it pump's not there? Is it? Oh, that is the pump. Yeah, the pump's there. We just got to put the motor on top of the pump now.
Driver.
Okay, moving on to this area. There's not a lot of change here. This system seems to be ready to go. The tank farm side of things seems to be probably more ready to go than the actual pad area. They seem to have finished what they were doing in here. They've left a nice crooked pipe for the OCD people, which I find amusing.
That pipe's been there for quite a while.
A bit of pad 1, pad A. I'm still going to
Scrap.
call it pad scrap. Pad scrap. Yeah, so we'll get this question every week pretty well. Is this going to be a flame trench in here? Well, at this stage, we don't really know. There's lots of speculation either way. But this week, they've actually pulled... Am I in the right week? Yes, I am. Sometimes through show and tell, I get my folders mixed up, and I'll be looking at last week's photos. Last week, I think there was a ship on here. So this frame came out already, and all the clamps are back in for the booster. Looks like this is all going to come up in one piece. Which here we can see the LOX drains have been removed. So that's all coming ahead quickly, so they can get booster 16 up here. I think booster 16 will be here sort of shortly. I think the crane's moved, hasn't it, back to pad B?
I believe it did, yeah.
Okay, we'll go over to the ASU unit. This week we see there it is, we see the drilling rig set up. I don't think it's actually driven piles yet, has it?
It did. I think yesterday it started.
Okay, yeah. It's got its little concrete pump here and its little backup concrete pump over here. Oh, there's the cages already for the... So the second one, the second drilling rig, is it totally left the site, left
yeah.
Starbase?
Yeah, just looks like it's a fairly small job.
I think we see a change in, no idea why, but they've changed the outside boxing here, formwork, to this weird thing, weird shape.
They did the same thing at Rio West. It's a permanent sheet pile.
So they're driven right down as a pile.
Yeah. Yeah, they did the same.
So that section?
It's facing the dunes and to sort of seal it. So if you look on the edges of the launch site where they have the concrete, when the water flows off of it, it erodes.
Like down here?
Yeah.
It's probably more visible at the pad scrap.
And right to the right of the frame. It's where... Yeah.
Cool.
So to utilize the area fully, having the vertical wall and not having to disturb any of the sensitive soil with your formwork, you just drive a short section and pile in that stays.
So they've been doing a bit of cleanup around the area with their bobcats out in here. We've seen they're rebuilding a dune in here. A dune, sorry, I spoke American then. We'll say dune, you'll say dune. So because they've taken a bit of dune out of here, they'll have to put it back in here. Right, let's go to some SpaceX updates, and I might hand this over to Ryan, please.
Yeah, so just a couple of days ago, I think it was actually yesterday, SpaceX announced they had closed the Flight 9 investigation, and we usually we kind of get that coupled with the announcement for the next flight. So Flight 10 was officially announced by SpaceX, and maybe go through the Flight 9 information here quick. So they started with a little bit of a recap about the flight. So first reuse of a super heavy booster, which was good to see, and they had all the engines running. So pretty good step toward showing that they can reuse the booster, and I believe they used a majority of the same engines as well. So it's a good thing there. And they were running an experiment, so we did not get booster 14 back. They're kind of doing two things. They wanted to test an engine out situation, as well as an increased angle during the glide back to its landing zone. So I did go back and look at some of my previous measurements, and I believe the booster glide is roughly around 12 degrees, during its peak on previous launches. And during Flight 9, booster 14 got to about 17 degrees, which was more than previous, and doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it does have a pretty big effect in the end. So they were able to get through a lot of the glide. They were able to go down to the landing burn, where 12 of the 13 engines fired up, and that's where they had an issue. The booster did experience a RUD, and SpaceX's findings is that it most likely was due to the actual fuel transfer tube inside the LOX tank during that landing burn ignition. The way that the booster was angled possibly caused too much force, caused that to break, and then we had a mixing of the liquid oxygen and methane, which is not great. So the booster did experience a RUD. They started roughly in the aft section, which could mean that mixing in the LOX tank and then sucking into the engines. Maybe engine went out, or maybe just the mixing itself caused the explosion. Not entirely sure, but anywhere there was mixing, and that caused the booster to explode. So on future flights, they're actually going to limit the angle a little bit. They're using the 17 as kind of the let's not do that again. And so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we see them go back down to that angle of about 12 degrees, or they might push it maybe to 13, but probably need to keep it a little bit more safe so they can get to their engine out demo. So that's the news on booster 14. When it comes to ship 37, ultimately they found that there was a canister leakage on the methane tank. It's a little misleading, I guess, with exactly what that kind of means, but the way that I understand it is that the autogenous pressurization system has pipes that route up the side of the vehicle, and then you would fill the tanks with the pressurized gas of that respective tank. And part of that requires them to kind of have a manifold inside the propellant tank that kind of distributes the high pressure gas. And also with that, they may have additional filtering equipment or other things. And so we've seen during the construction of the vehicles that there are components, especially on the top of the methane tank, where the autogenous pressurization lines, they come up and then they actually turn in at the very top of the dome. And so most likely what happened is some sort of a weld or a seal broke in that area, and that actually allowed high pressure gas, which is supposed to go into the methane tank. It actually started leaking into the payload bay, and that's not great to have high pressure methane gas in your payload bay. So there were a couple of software controls that the ship went through that do various things depending on a lot of the factors at play or where it's at in flight. This didn't cause a problem during the ascent. The autogenous pressurization was able to actually boost up, even though it was losing pressure into the payload bay. It was able to keep the methane tank pressurized enough to prevent any sort of engine issues during the ascent. But after that, that's when things started going bad. Nose cone was pressurized. They vented some of the pressure out. But because you had a leak from the methane tank into the nose cone, whatever pressure the methane tank was at is what the nose cone was trying to be pressurized to. So they had issues. It caused the door opening to be aborted. The door actually opens. It kind of uses the internal pressure to seal the door. So if you have a high pressure differential between the payload bay and the external atmosphere, your door is not going to open very easy. It uses the pressure to kind of push it into the seal. So they have to vent all the pressure in the payload bay in order to get the door to actually open. So door demo was skipped. They ended up skipping the in-space burn, but because they were still leaking a lot of this pressure, they couldn't actually regain control of the vehicle. So it ended up re-entering similar to ship 28 and burning up in the atmosphere. So
Ryan, do you think the liquid methane leaking into the payload bay was why we saw so much ice floating around the payload bay during the flight?
it's possible. I mean, you're going to have, gas particulates inside the tank, and some of that is going to, be forced out. If you have a spot for it to leak, naturally high pressure is going to want to move to an area of low pressure. So it may be, if you've ever had like a water bottle with, some water on the threads and you push on it a little bit, you might get like a spurt of, pressure and water coming out. I imagine that's probably what it looked like in the payload bay. Especially once they got into 0G and the engines were off, the liquid was able to kind of move around in the tank, could have gotten, near the top of the tank and then got forced out just due to the pressure kind of pulling in that direction.
It probably was frozen as methane solids, sort of like the LOX leaking on Falcon once going up the mouse or whatever. It's just frozen oxygen that's being vented.
The mouse.
The expansion of the liquid when it's going into the vacuum will pretty much freeze it solid instantly.
So yeah, it did look a little dirty in the payload bay during Flight 9, and that's probably the reason why there was a lot of ice particulate that we could see floating around.
Cool.
So for Ship 36, we kind of already had a pretty good idea about Ship 36 that it was a COPV, but SpaceX is again confirming that they think that the one of the COPVs was damaged and went kind of unnoticed, and then when it stores the high pressure nitrogen for use, a lot of maybe the purging systems or even the valve, the pneumatics on the ship also use the nitrogen. So that COPV was damaged, and so what they're going to do in the future, they've already addressed a couple of procedural changes. They're going to reduce some of the pressure inside those COPVs. It's possible that they were actually keeping more on board than they really needed. So that they have maybe some wiggle room, they can decrease the pressure, or maybe they might add a couple more COPVs and just run them all a little bit lower. Not entirely sure, but they were able to replicate the issue with the damaged COPV, and they're also going to be putting some new covers on the COPVs. So when they go to install them, it'll be a little bit more indicative of if they ended up with some damage during the install procedure. So it's unfortunate, but it leads to some new protocols that will hopefully keep that from happening again.
Okay, was there an update to Flight 10?
So for Flight 10, they're basically going to repeat Flight 9. They're going to do Booster 16 will not be caught, which is a little unfortunate. I know a lot of people like to see the booster catches. It's kind of unfortunate when you can do it, but they don't do it. So, it makes sense. They want to push the boundaries a little bit more. So. They will be expending Booster 16. They will be doing the landing burn engine out demo. So one of the center engines will be deactivated. And thanks to Booster 13 scrapping, we actually were able to see exactly how they go about that engine out scenario, where a couple of the engines from the middle ring actually have some pipes that extend down into the the bottom of the landing tank so that they can actually use propellant up till pretty late in the landing burn. So, yeah, they'll expend booster 16, and then the ship will be doing all of the same demos. So, crossing our fingers that ship 37 will be able to nail all of those milestones. It would be, going back to kind of a flight 4, flight 5 kind of situation. Hopefully we get a nice splashdown of ship 37, and maybe they'll be able to get the ship towed into Australia. So we'll cross our fingers that they can get that done.
And just in case you're wondering where they would drag that into Australia, that's like about 4,500 kilometres from where I'm sitting, so I might not make it to that. We might just end the show quickly on some of those images coming out of SpaceX. Thanks, Ryan, heaps for that update. I really appreciate your time on that today. Here we can go.
Somebody was asking about where those clamps sit.
Oh,
right where your hand is one of the cubbies.
So the ball, the socket, there's a socket for the ball that we see those silver hemispheres to sit up underneath there. And then the clamp, the cocky beak, goes inside there and clamps right on top of the sphere there. Sorry, Ryan.
Yep. No, I was just going to say that, yeah, that's where the little ball goes. And the ball is kind of pulled more a little bit to the outside. They want a lot of the loading to go down through the wall of the booster. So it's spaced out pretty far kind of on the edge there. In fact, the end of it is kind of cut off. I think the ball will stick out a little bit from the side of the booster.
Okay, cool. Okay, this is this render shows some of the what we believe was going to be the external manifolds for that one's obviously for regen. There's probably perhaps engine locks bleed and some of the high pressure lines in here. I see a couple of images floating around with labels on them that are probably fairly accurate. There's that the booster quick disconnect, like you said, nice and close to the booster. We can see in the renders, we see over at the masses, there's the 4 higher pressure gas lines, the main cryo, and a couple of, well, these could be different things. I think on methane, one of these could be methane return, and on the lock side, it could be one of the pre-presses.
It's also a liquid vapor return for the where they're catching the gas.
For oxygen, they're capturing oxygen too, aren't they, this time around?
Yeah.
So they'll have a methane gas. They'll have a methane return, and say if this is the methane one, that'll be a methane return. If this is the oxygen one, they might have an oxygen return, and plus a pre-press, and then some high pressure stuff. And one of these will have to be electrical too, I guess, and data.
Based on this angle, this one should be the liquid oxygen side. So you've got your pre-press, and your drain back, and so that one would be the methane over there.
Yep.
Yeah, you have 2 sets of pressure of methane, nitrogen, and oxygen. One of them's helium, and probably the 4th one on one of the sides is a data umbilical.
Yep, and this is also, they don't have any booster quick disconnects, the 20 booster quick disconnect, which was, personally, I'm pretty happy to see that go.
It's probably plugged into that ring manifold. That's probably how it's actually connected for the individual engines, or those little pucks that we saw on 17 or 18.1.
And just to finish up, we got a good image of we could spend an hour talking about that booster, sorry. Just to finish off, we see the new grid fins, which are 50% bigger, and the big change, of course, with booster and going into the future is the landing point is now part of the grid fin. When I first heard they were going to land on the grid fins, I thought across here, but they've actually created a lift or a load point here with a bit of a curve on it to allow, you notice when booster lands, it rocks a little bit, but also allows the stabilizers to move the bottom of the booster around a bit, gives it sort of somewhere to rock on. And somewhere here, perhaps for the pushers to push against, or at least a limit to the rocking that can happen.
Yeah, that flat edge, it kind of there's a little bit of a curve, I guess, to the side there, but yeah, there is a flat portion vertically there where the pusher would contact the side to be able to push it around. And one thing I also noticed on this is that you do see a little bit of a flanged edge on that. It does kind of look like they will be putting like a slightly curved piece of metal on the bottom of that, and you can't actually see the bolt hole in this angle. It's very dark, but in the other angle you can see there is a bolt hole where, yeah, right, that little black circle right by the flat or the curved surface. Nope, up this little black
Dead center.
speck. Yeah. Yep. So presumably they'll put like a piece of material here, whatever it may be, and you can think of it kind of like a bearing that you might find like in a combustion engine, where it'll be like kind of a half piece, and it will be sacrificial, so they can replace that after the fact. So it doesn't actually eat into the grid fin; it would just eat away at the metal as it lands and rocks and whatever else, and then. So if they have to replace that, it's just a little sliver they can unbolt and put a new one on.
Actually, a question I just came up with right now is how are they going to lift with the bridge cranes? Are they going to be able to lift like on the booster, current booster? They can run a sling down the side of the tank, down the side of the airframe. This will need some kind of frame in here, won't it? Like a little landing rail, basically.
They'll probably have, like you're saying, a little piece that will be span the kind of the width underneath this catch point, and then they'll be able to lower it basically down attached on one side to the crane. Once they get it underneath, they'll be able to hook the other side of it onto it, pull it horizontal, and then lift up, and it'll contact the bottom there.
Yeah.
It'll probably be like a U shape.
Yeah, yep, something like that.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Well, we've got any questions now for the build site? I mean, for the launch site. Sorry.
We do. We have a few questions. Schizo Quark was wondering what item or job around Pad B or the GSC do you guys think still needs the most amount of time to complete?
I'll leave that one to Alex.
Most of the GSC is done. It's mainly the electrical. It looks like they're finishing a bit of the trench, but yeah, the bulk of the work in the tank farm is completed. They're lifting one of the sumps.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention they're putting the sump pumps in. You can see it here, which will go down the hole, which is down in here somewhere.
Yeah. There's also quite a few manifolds on that. So there's installing some more plumbing down there than just the sump.
And the other pump is over here with its bit of green pipe over there. Okay, thanks, Matt.
And those elbows are probably for those 4 vents coming out on the lower level.
And the rest of Pad B, like we're seeing a lot of things finished up. The water tank, obviously, water system, there's just a little bit to finish off. There's probably a bit more plumbing to do in that gas system over there. There's obviously whatever's going on over here. I'm not sure whether that's stopping launches at the moment, whether that's a replacement for that or what is going on with that. I kind of think that's going to go still, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Mostly that's really tidying up. Most places are like at least sort of 90% sort of complete. The tower obviously still has to have its SQD arm. Once again, I've got an idea this site may be completed either just before at a very similar time to when Booster 18 will be ready to come down here. That's a very good question. And over the last few weeks, I've been saying that all the little areas are slowly getting like almost fully complete. There's not much more to go, really. In saying that, the last 10% can be the fiddliest and take the longest amount of time with any kind of construction. The bulk work can be done fairly quickly, then all the fiddly fitting up can take a decent amount of time.
Seemingly
Pretty impressive.
Absolutely.
a third.
Wrangler was wondering, are you guys seeing any provisions for Pad B to be able to mount a ship if they needed to test fire one there instead of Massey's?
No.
Unless they come up with one of those adapter rings.
That would be like
Uh,
a worst case scenario type thing. I don't think they want to do that ever.
Yeah, I
The
don't
only
see
reason
that
I'd-
happening.
the only
the
reason they'd need to do that is if they blow up Massey's again.
but it puts a incredible strain on the deflector because they're all
What-
the whole sequence, the drainage sequence, the spray sequence is set up for the plumes coming off the booster.
Which, along with that
Okay.
one, Crane Man kind of was talking about that with Pad A. Would they maybe keep that for static fires along with Massey's as well, since they kind of have the ability now, and they're getting
They-
ready to change over to Pad B?
They'd have to redo the deflector plate holes on it to sync up with the engine, pattern on the ship.
See, you guys were talking, I think, last week's photos about it looking like the ship did damage to the plate, and I looked and I looked, and I think you guys might have been a little bit confused by the lighting conditions because I don't think there's any more soot on the plate, or because even in show and tell, you guys were talking about how it looked like it was cleaner or stuff, disappeared. I think it was purely lighting. I don't think that there's any way that the ship did any damage to this plate. There was an excessive amount of water being spilled out, and I just don't
Yeah.
see that. Even if it's not positioned directly above where the plume is originating, that entire centerpiece is leaking enough water for 13 center engines.
It's not the impinging point. Impinging point is the water. If it's not under it or there's holes for it to escape, it won't flow where it needs to. And the shock wave of it impacting that, it's just like on the mock diamonds where the exhaust is getting heated to 5,000 or 7,000 degrees and you're getting the plasma glow. You're getting the exact same effect when the plume is hitting that plate, if not worse.
But you're right. You've got one good point. It's the different angles here, Ryan. There's some of them look a lot sootier than the other. I noticed that I was looking back over the photos. This other angle here, the lighting you can actually see, it doesn't look quite as sooty as we first thought.
It's not the soot wouldn't make these engines aren't coking, so you shouldn't have soot. It's more of
Soot is not a good way of describing it. It's more of the surface of the metal is being eroded away, and it's reflecting light differently, which is why it looks darker.
it's a matting of where it's hitting. And yeah, there's some angles where it does look different.
But to be
And I
clear,
don't think
like long term, you likely don't want to fire a ship at a plate like this that doesn't have the holes in the right spot. But if they were to do it like 2 or 3 times or maybe 5 times, it's not going to make a significant amount of damage compared to what the booster is going to do every single launch.
I disagree with that assessment, and we could take it
All right.
offline.
We'll keep going with questions. Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely. We have old tech guy Paul was wondering, how will the piping be routed from the ASU? Do we know underground or overground?
I'm not sure if we've seen paperwork from that. I thought I saw something about it going under Highway 4. And then from then it could just join the racks here. So I'm not exactly sure yet. Thank you.
Yeah, and the last thing we have on the docket right now is maybe we could go and cover Rio West and the school and some of the other outlying properties before we go.
We can have a quick look there for sure. Sorry about didn't actually do that earlier. Rio West is moving along as expected. We've got some concrete on we've got some concrete on the next floor as well this week. Last week we saw concreting on the bottom floor here of the rec building, or whatever you want to call this, the commercial building. And otherwise, construction's going along just as we would imagine in this production line type construction of these houses, which once again, in my experience as an electrician, it's kind of cool working on this sort of construction where you get to move from house to house. So you'll do some fit out here and then you move over and do some rough out over here, and it's sort of good fun when they do it like that. It makes the day a bit more interesting. So they're almost complete with framework started all the way around. Same with the apartment buildings, they're almost complete with framework starting at least. And some of the houses looking quite finished.
Oh,
So it's,
stuff. In that shot along the water edge, you can by the houses, Nosy Canal, you can see that sheet pile wall.
oh, gotcha, yeah. It's actually like a little retainer wall down there.
Yeah. It looks like they just are putting the formwork 'cause they're going to probably have a sidewalk
there.
cantilevered over. Yeah.
There's the actual sheet piling, yeah. Okay, and yeah, but then maybe a cantilevered footpath over the top, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, on to this. Oh, there's the one of the accommodation sites. It's looking like perhaps it's livable now. Look, they're still bringing in units. Still haven't quite fully populated it yet. I think there's another row of them that come along here, this single row like over there. Oh, maybe not. No, maybe not. There's still a few houses to get put in. The school, it's coming along nicely. I can see a lot of change this week. Doesn't seem to be a lot of work going on at the moment, but it's obviously getting built slowly. And the parking lot, well, it's much the storage lot. There does seem to be an excess of, we didn't see that at the launch site. They've added at least one, haven't they, extra vaporizer at the launch site. You said, Alex, there seems to be an excess of vaporizer at the moment, no?
No, they needed. They have the 3 nitrogen ones, and I think they had 1 more methane to go, because there's going to be 6 methane and 6 nitrogen.
So there's those sites for you just quickly. We're at 2.5 hours, so that's good. They don't mind going over time, but you just wanted to see that. So that's the those sites. Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, sir. That's everything for me.
Okay, well, we can wrap this up. So first, I'd like to extend a warm thank you to Ryan Hansen. I nearly called you Webber then, sorry. Ryan Hansen then today for your time and expert knowledge and your overview of the info that SpaceX shared with us over the last couple of days. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Good to be here. I know a lot of exciting stuff happening. So every week there's a lot of new stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. And thank you once again, Alex, for your patience in explaining things to us all there.
Thank you, Ryan. I also love when you're on it. And BJ's cameo was also very informative.
Exactly, yeah. BJ stepped out, so just in his absence, I'm going to thank him for his input today as well. BJ is a very valuable contributor to the RGV channel, in both in production and in show and tells and so on, so really appreciate his time there. And I'll sign up. I'm Stephanie B from Australia, and how they go, most engines cut off. Love you, bye.